Hello, Pride of Capital and all others listening. You're now again listening to the Capital Sports Network Coaches Show, where we sit and talk Golden Line sports. You can now be part of the Sports Network by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram using @CapitalSports50. We're providing information, photos, as well as live updates to keep you informed about the latest going on with your Golden Line. So be sure to follow us and subscribe. Today we are sitting here with the basketball coaches. We have head coach StCyr, assistant coaches, should I say, Chris Bass and Timothy Lloyd. Gentlemen, welcome.
Bow, bow, bow.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here on this beautiful Friday.
So this evening, you guys are going into Dunham. And next week, we'll kick off district here against Madison Prep. Right now, we are sitting at, 5-13?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
5-13. Not the best schedule, or the best record, should I say, but it's definitely not reflection of what you have on the court, though, is it?
Right. That's correct. 5-13 is our record. We've lost five of those 13 losses have been by 5 or less points. I feel like we're right there. It's been kind of a roller coaster year, with our play. Some games we do real well. Some games we come out and play, lackluster. But this is the final game of the. We tell our teammates we kind of break the season into 3 parts.
Okay.
You have your I call it tournament time, or your pre-district games, and this will be our last game, like you just mentioned, before we start district on Tuesday. I think if we go out and play well, we need to. It's imperative that we come out and play well tonight and have some momentum going into district starting on Tuesday.
So most of the other teams are. I mean, I guess if we're looking at, records in terms of district. Before we actually get into district, I mean, just the overall season, 5-13. A lot of the games I attended, and like you said, you lost them by 5 or so points, and it just seemed like some of them they just came out flat. Some of them they just third quarter was the killer. Some errors that were made that. Some of the guys I know they know better.
Right.
But do you think that was an adequate preparation for going into district? And also, what do you think the chances for playoffs are?
From the power rankings that we looked at last week, we were up to 37, which is,
okay.
They take the top 32, which is 5 spots, back. At that time we had 10 games left. I was telling the guys, we need to, get at least 8 of those 10 to, to really just, stamp our card, and we wouldn't have to worry about, teams losing or things like that. But, with that being said, with the teams that we have in our district and their records, if we, come out and go, win 6 out of the 8 games in district, which is, very obtainable.
Yeah.
It's a very good chance we get into the playoffs. And with our team play, like you said, a few of those games we just came out and, we were just flat. I know that 12 o'clock East Baton Rouge game, I tell everybody about it. Our team didn't want to be there. Broadmoor didn't want to be there. It was, probably about 10 people in the mini dome that morning. So, we came out flat. But a lot of those games, I think just having a sophomore point guard or just young guards, guys that don't have a lot of varsity experience, we wasn't able to close out a few of those games that I felt like we should have won.
And I guess that's the note too, that you have Well, first off, you take over the head spot this year,
Right.
and you inherit most of those guys that you had last year. So a fairly young team
Right.
in what you're working with. So I mean I guess that's to be taken into consideration as well. And I mean I would like to hear from the other two guys in the room as well.
Yeah, we have the piggyback off what Coach said. We have a fairly young team with a point guard. This is his first year starting varsity. He played a lot of junior varsity last year.
Okay.
Edwin Young, he's a guy that looked very good this summer, but we lost one of our key guys.
He was a leader. The kids followed him. When you lose that big leadership piece and you looking towards a sophomore to lead the team, that's a lot of pressure on him, and he just can't handle that pressure too much right now. Some games he able to handle it and control it well. Some games he don't be able to control it well.
Right. And it was more so the void of having a guy, a closer, and to to commend the guys that we have, to commend Trey Corey and Edwin and those guys. They wanted to step up, and they have stepped up to take on that role and to they want those shots. But I mean, just right now, and the moment hadn't been too big for them, but it's just the game experience just hadn't been there. But the positive side to that is the experience that they're gaining now. It's really I think pay dividends for us. Starting, I think starting going into district,
Right.
And trickling over to the summer. We're planning on having a real productive summer, and I think I laugh and joke with a lot of my coaching buddies and tell them y'all better get us this year because
look out next
right,
year, huh?
because next year everybody that slipped up on us, we coming back to get that times 10.
Right. And I guess that's always a good thing too, to have a young team that play and grow together. So especially when that time comes around, everybody's kind of gelled together. They do have that experience, which does count for a lot, especially with a young team. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to see what the next two seasons is going to look like with the group you have now. So how are we looking in terms of JV and freshmen? We still have any standouts up and coming? Any of them kind of get any playing time?
Let me start off with this, Coach, first, and I'm gonna let you go. But I just want to say, being the varsity coach, and just sitting back and watching, not from afar because we all intertwine, but that varsity, the junior varsity team, man, they are really a treat to watch because a lot of the core values and things that we've been implementing since the summer, playing unselfish, playing for one another, we've been preaching since the summer, we over me, those guys really play like that. They share the basketball. They talk on defense. They help one another out. It's never a time where there's a and and forth exchange between a player and the coach. So for me being the varsity coach and working and I look at myself doing the junior varsity games as being Coach Bass's assistant. Because that's what I believe in. It's real positive, man, and I'm excited because those guys will.
For basketball,
right? They gonna move up next year, and I'm excited. So Coach, you can take it from there. But I just had to add that, man, how excited I am, to watch the junior varsity team work.
Right.
Oh yeah, Coach, they're a very fiery group. They're very intense, and we have a guy, Jaquan Ballard. He's a transfer guy that we were waiting on his stuff, and he's a big piece to the program that we's waiting to. Hope his paperwork and stuff get cleared, and Darius Ellis, he's a I call him a gamer.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
he's a guy that want that big shot. He's the guy that want the ball in key moments. You know, not Care Dawson. He's another player.
Right.
You know that's passionate about basketball. You know, and when you got a group of guys like that, it kind of makes your job easier.
Right.
You know, so I really enjoyed. You know, we've been through some ups and downs, and just like with varsity, we lost a couple key games off key situations because some of these guys haven't been in big moments where you know the score's tied up and it's 10 seconds to go, and you know the jitters might get you. You know, so.
Yeah.
I think by us going through this now, I think it'll help us in the future. So I think we're gonna be good years to come.
Good. And I guess here's another thing that you know I would like to let everybody who kind of listens to the show get a piece of is the coaching experience or where the coaching is coming from. So if the two of you don't mind, just kind of talk about what your careers were, where you've been, and we now know that you're here.
Okay. Well, my real name is Jamie and StCyr, but everybody in the basketball community, the coaching fraternity knows me as Toby.
Okay.
I played at Point Competent Central High School from 91 to 94. Went to Three Rivers Community College in Missouri. Finished at Northwestern State in 99. Started coaching. Started as freshman coach at Point Competent Central High School, my alma mater, in 99, and I've been coaching varsity basketball since 2004. So, that's kind of my story full circle. Now I'm here with Coach Chris Bass over at Capitol High School, and it's a funny story, funny situation because actually my very first varsity basketball game was played against Capitol High School back with Preston Coleman and DeMond Turner, those guys there. Coach Stewart was the head boys coach, and even our years at Point Competent Central in 2A, we were in the district with Capitol. So I've, I guess to a funny tidbit, I've played against Coach Stewart when he was the coach at Capitol. I've coached against Coach Stewart when I was the coach at Point Competent and he was at Capitol. Now I'm on the coaching staff with Coach Stewart. So
once rivals, now co-workers.
Right, exactly.
I'm a Capitol alum. If you don't know, I'm just I went to Capitol. Bleed red and gold. That's all I think about. I went to go to LSU, played 4 years there. This is my third year coaching. I went to prep school after I left Capitol, Lee Academy in Maine. I coached there 1 year, and it was I got kind of a little spoiled a little bit because we had a good team. We finished 27-5, and when you coaching guys, that really listen and really understand the game, and it can get kind of frustrating when you have a young team. But overall, I really enjoy what we're doing here and with the players that we have, and like I said, I really enjoy the experience, and it's a learning experience, and you have to be patient. When you have a young team like we were saying. Right. And so I kind of have to say.
Man, let me interject because Coach sitting over here trying to be modest. Man, Coach name and say what it is. Say the LSU days. Say the Final Four. Say the pro guys you done played with. Say I've gone toe to toe with John Wall and played against.
Okay. That's what we're looking for.
Right. He's over there being humble and right. Exactly.
Appreciate the modesty. But I think that does a lot, not only for the team and understanding what caliber of coach they have. Right. When I was playing ball, my high school coach, and that was the extent of my career, was basically a baseball coach. I mean, he was one heck of a baseball coach. Basketball, not so much. But, when you can stand before a group of guys, especially a young team, and say that, I've been toe-to-toe with this person, I've been Final Four, these guys that are now in the league, I was in the trenches with. I mean, to me, you know, if I would have had that when I was playing ball,
Right.
I'd have been, you know, bug-eyed, soaking in everything I could, because, you know, that's the level of play in which I wanted to achieve. You know, so yeah, give us that rundown, man.
Yeah, most definitely.
Trying to be modest.
My freshman year, I played with Marcus Thornton. He's playing with Houston Rockets right now. Garrett Temple, he's with the Washington Wizards. Chris Johnson, he played with the Timberwolves. Now he overseas. Tasman Mitchell, he's playing overseas. He's probably one of the best players to come through Louisiana. He was number one at the time when he came out in high school.
McDonald's All-American.
McDonald's All-American.
Coach's son.
Also, my brother had played here. Brandon Bass, he played at Capitol.
McDonald's All-American.
McDonald's All-American. Probably the first one since Lester Earl to come through
really?
Baton Rouge.
Really?
That's something that was key. Yeah, I've been in the trenches with, you know, the best of guys. John Wall. I didn't got it handed to me too. I ain't gonna lie.
I mean, that's the game.
Right. That's part of it.
You know, that's what I try to pass on to the guys, because I know what it takes to get to that level. So that's why I hope they soak in what me and Coach Lloyd tell them, because we'd all played at that level. And, you know, like I said, we know what it takes in the classroom and outside the classroom, because, you know, grades come first. And that's something we always preach to them. And it's very important, like I said, to get your education and listen to your parents and things like that. But, yeah, I've been in the war with the best of the guys, man. And, you know, that experience. And playing under Coach Johnson, who's coached guys like Brooke Lopez, who played with, you know, we play with Brooklyn Nets right now. His brother playing with the New York Knicks.
Okay.
So, you know, I didn't play for, you know, top coaches who've been made a lot of money in this game too. So, yeah, I really enjoy it.
And we'll shift gears here, you know, again in just a second, but we're gonna give Coach Lloyd the opportunity to kind of give his resume too, in terms of, you know, coaching and that sort of thing.
Started off young, 20 years old. A guy named Michael Roach gave me my first chance to start coaching football at Southern Lab back in 2008. 2008. He gave me my first opportunity. From there, I got into basketball at the school under Coach Lonnie Machen, you know. And, you know, he showed me a lot of the ropes. He taught me a lot of things being under him. You know, sometimes it's not about the X's and O's. It's about, you know, just getting the guys to know it's more than life than just basketball sometimes.
Right.
You know, I got several kids that I coach that's in college right now that I'm proud of. The latest one is JR. He's at the University of Texas San Antonio, averaging 25 and 15 a game.
Okay.
You know, straight from North Baton Rouge. Went to left Southern Lab, went to New Orleans for 2 years at a school called Miller McCord. And you know, a guy named Cleotis, he gave me a call while I was down there and asked me did I want to come. We always talked about, you know, if we ever got the opportunity to be on the same staff together, you know,
make it happen.
we're going to make it happen. So he gave me that shot. And last year was my first year here at Capitol, and learned a lot of history about the school that I really didn't know. But, you know, Coach gave me the opportunity to come work with him also. You know, he knew me from when I was coaching at Lab. You know, we had our epic battles going to Point Capee Central, and them coming to Southern Lab. Always came down to who had the ball last, who wanted it more. You know, I think Coach got us one more than I think we won. I don't know if it's easy. I think they up one on when I was coaching when he was at Point Capee Central.
Even way back to middle school ball.
I
Coach
coached
Lloyd.
middle school at Southern Lab. Southern Lab go, you know, a lot of, if you not from this area, Southern Lab goes from pre-K to 12. So I had the 7th, 8th grade middle school basketball team, and, you know, they had a league. We went to them, came down to the wire. I drew up a good play. Kid came off, just rimmed out. I was like, oh, but, you know, it's good camaraderie. You know, I played college football for a year, decided that wasn't my focus anymore. I wanted to go into actual coaching. So that's when I ventured off into coaching. And like I said, I know Michael Roach is at our semi-rivalry school right now, Madison Prep, but I'd like to give thanks to those who helped me along the way. And I try, like I said, my biggest thing with the kids, I just want them to understand, like Coach Bass said, we want basketball. You love it, but it is gonna love you back.
Right.
If you show it love, it's gonna love you back. And if it makes you, and if you treat it wrong, she gonna treat you wrong.
Yeah, and like it's crazy story because the small town coach from is New Roads is where my dad's from, and like everybody who's from that area is kind of like family, basically.
Okay.
So I've been knowing Coach from, long times. He been working my brother camps every summer. Right. Like I said, if my mom wouldn't have passed away and I moved to Baton Rouge, I probably would have played for Coach because he was the head coach at Point Capee.
Okay.
So I probably would have, had a chance to play for Coach, but.
So it's not only the coaching opportunity. There's a lot of history between. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, but believe it or not, people from Point Capee and New Road still look at Chris and Brandon as
they from Point Capee.
Right, they from Point Capee. Now of course everybody's to go claim them because the people from Urbanville say the same thing. Brandon and Chris, they from Urbanville. People from the EBR area say the same thing. So like Coach said, to reiterate that it wasn't like I was working with a guy that I didn't know or I'm just meeting the guy. It was just kind of like like family.
Mm-hmm. I guess that kind of makes things easy as well as interesting sometimes. Right. Family arguments. Well,
I think I think our personalities we do a great job of leveling each other off.
Yeah.
So it always works well. I know one thing that I can say, that we all have in common. We all have a passion for basketball, and what we always tell our guys, and it's not a passion for wins. We won't sell a kid short or sell our program short. I know, and I know this from experience, from coming from my alma mater coaching. And seeing Coach now back had his alma mater coaching, it's not just about like getting to the playoffs this year or winning 20 games this year. Right. We are trying to bring back that prestige, that importance to Capital basketball. Mm-hmm. That Coach had it going when he was here, when his brother Brandon was here.
Right.
When we played Capital back in for me to tell my age, back in 91.
Right.
When you walk into Capitol Gym and it's standing room only, and you count your blessings if you were able to come down to Baton Rouge and come in this gym and come out with a win. So those are the things that we're really passionate about and trying to get our kids to see and buy into. Just the how rich of a tradition and the pride that was once at this school. So that's what we're fighting and scratching and clawing and trying to get our kids to buy in, and it's it's coming, and I know they probably say the same thing. Maybe not as fast as we would want it to, but it's a process, and I think it's going in the right direction, and with time given, I know that the coaching staff and I, we coming back to that prominence.
Yep.
And me actually being new to Capital in this tradition, I've had an opportunity to speak to a lot of the the older coaches, the old football coach who still comes to all of the games, both football and basketball. And then actually my pastor's an alum of the school, and just kind of not only do you have that tradition in sports, you also have that tradition academically. So I found out that a couple of the judges, the Field brothers, actually graduated from Capital. A couple of was he state rep now, Marcel? Denise Marcel. Yeah. It's a graduate of Capital. So it is a lot of rich tradition, heritage, pride. And I would like to be part of getting that culture back here as well, because it's just it is amazing to see, especially the alumni still in action, doing things. We like to get them to participate a little bit more, but getting the guys to actually see and, like you said, buy into that whole deal. As coaching styles, I must say, having watched you coach StCyr, I've actually learned a lot, especially about temperament. Because having been in the locker room after a couple of games and during a couple of halftimes, I see a lot of myself right here in Coach Bass. It's wait a minute, we got to get this train back on the track.
Right.
Hand clapping, yelling, hey, let's go. But to keep that temperament to say, okay, it is what it is. We've been right there. Let's pick up where we are right now and move forward. Is I guess. I don't want to necessarily say it's a sad thing to say, but they'll look back on these days, these times, these situations later on in life, right, and be very appreciative of them. I can almost guarantee that, because even
times when we was young, now that you saying that, I think about the times my coaches got on me,
right,
and,
right,
jumped down my throat and let me know, what you doing is not what's up.
It's not it.
And it pretty much helped me mold. It helped mold me into the man that I am today. I never you don't understand why till later, when you see that same situation you was doing, and you're looking at that kid you're talking
my
to.
Pops used to say, keep living.
Like, yeah, right. And you're looking at that kid like, oh man, this kid remind me so much of me right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
And like Coach said, like I always tell them, the 4 years I went here, you couldn't tell us that we wasn't going to the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
So, and I always tell them, I've lost before. In college, I lost 2 years in a row, bad. So I learned a lot from that. So I always give them, situations and experience, and let them know things that don't figure you think you're in this alone, that we're losing this year. Probably we lost some close games, because I would have been in close games. I'd have been on the good side and the bad side. Right. So it's all a learning experience, and it's continue the process.
Well, anything else y'all would like to add?
We here to stay.
We ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. Well, what I would like to put out to the community is that just looking at the basketball landscape, and who's the the guys that's kind of leading the pack in public schools in the EBR, and not to discredit anybody, and I don't want to open a can of anything, because I'm not, but I just would like to say that if the Capital alum and the community area people, if we keep our kids, the Capital kids that around Capital, if we get those student athletes, boys and girls, on campus, there would be a quick and a graceful turnaround, I think. I feel that and maybe rightfully so, or who's to say, but with the the turnover and things, maybe a lot of people have thought about moving their kids and going to places that seemed like things were more stable. But I see the kids and the parents that go here, that their parents went here and their grandparents went here. There's those kids and parents are more invested in the school, and I know the grass may seem greener somewhere else, and I don't want to call out schools' names or whatever, but I know, and I feel it in my heart that the kids, the families that are Capital area families, if they send their kids back here, I know that it would be a little bit more pride taken into things, and the whole school culture would turn around a lot quicker. So my word, being a outsider, and I know Coach Bass could speak on it a lot more than I can. But just me being an outsider, that's one of the things that I've seen, and I think and I know you all want your school to be back to the prominence that it was in the 80s. Y'all remember when Capital was the school to be in Baton Rouge. So help us out. We're here to work for the community and work for your kids. So help us out. Send us your kids, send us your boys and girls. Right. Even if they're a little rough around the edge. We'll knock the coal off of them and then turn them into a diamond. So
mold them.
Right, mold them into a diamond. So that's what I'm seeing. Very excited. I think the sky's the limit for the things that we have going. Thank you for having us on.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure. We'll definitely have to keep doing this, especially throughout district, to kind of keep everybody informed. Right. Anything, Coach Bass, Coach Lloyd?
Like Coach said, we gotta get the kids like from our community. Like, have to. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I come from this area. I grew up right around the corner from Capitol. Like I said, my people know I'm not going to Capitol. What? Huh? So we got to get the kids from the inner city that's in the Capital District and close by, especially the people who went here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of.
And I mean, I guess I would have to. Well, I don't know if I guess I would definitely have to agree with that, because just the other day, sitting in class with one of my students, we were kind of going over mission statement, and we were talking about the alma mater, and she was like, well, I knew the alma mater before I even came here. And I was like, well, how did you know that? She was like, my mama and everybody else, went to Capitol, and we had this big long discussion about family members that went to Struma and those that went to Capitol, and how it was. She was like, they actually get into arguments about, what schools, and to me, that is the pride that kind of sustains not only how students perform, but how it helps them later on in life. Having something to believe in, to know where you came from, and then to know that you have something to give back to that, to keep things going, is all good.
Right.
Well, I know you guys got to get out of here, get ready to go, prepare for Dunham tonight. Wish you guys well on that.
Thank you.
And to everybody listening, as we do close, we do have home game here in the Lions Den, kicking off district against Madison Prep on Tuesday evening.
Yes, sir.
I believe it's both girls and boys game.
Right.
Beginning at 6 p.m.
5.
Five.
JV boys.
5
o'clock. JV boys kick it off, and then we go into the girls.
It's gonna be a packed house.
And then to the boys. So wishing you well on this road through district. Looking for a playoff run and even further. Again, thank you all for joining us, and everybody out there listening. Remember that you can be part of the Capital Sports Network. Follow us on Facebook, Capital Sports 50, and you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter using @Capital Sports 50. Until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Coach StCyr, Coach Bass, and Coach Lloyd.
Thank you.
Remember that the power is in the crowd.
Go to line basketball, Capital versus anybody.